Hello all, welcome to Up The Poshcast, the Poshcast made by the fans for the fans. Grab yourself a drink, put your feet up and listen in. And by the way, there could be some strong language.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of Up The Poshcast. Today I'm joined by Ashley, Lodz, Max and Charlie, and I'm John, and we're going to discuss the week that was with Peterborough United. There was actually a few little bits going on, but I think the biggest news of the week is that Up The Poshcast has a website. So please do feel free to check that out. It's www.uptheposhcast.com, and on there you can buy our lovely pin badges. For those of you who are watching on YouTube, Lodz is about to model one right now. There it is. They're available for £6 in a bundle deal with some stickers. We really appreciate if you could buy them. Basically, it helps fund the podcast. There are a lot of hidden costs with running a podcast, and if you're willing to donate £6, if you've enjoyed our content, you'll get a lovely pin badge. Wear them to the games, and we'll come and say hello. Unless you don't want to talk to us, and just tell us to go away, and we won't bother you. Without further ado, we're going to crack on with the pod. We've had a relatively busy week with Peterborough, but what I want to talk about first is Ricky-Jade Jones. Now, for those of you who listened to last week's episode, the news broke literally as the guys were recording, and the reactions were pretty raw. I personally thought Ash was quite harsh with his commentary, and I've seen a few comments after the pod suggesting that others thought similar. So we're going to throw to Ash first and find out whether he regrets those comments, or a week later if he has any, change of opinion.
A regret? No, I would say. Maybe my feelings have more turned towards disappointment. I know that there's the whole argument, well, he had a contract with us, he's seen it out. I just think that it's just very disappointing that you can sort of set yourself up for potentially a move and some money for your hometown club. Look, there's arguments whether he really does care about Peterborough or not, but I think that maybe my feelings have probably moved towards disappointment more than anything, rather than just like pure shock and anger and frustration last week. Because ultimately, you look at how quiet it's been this week, I think it's going to be that way for the next sort of 5-6 weeks until the season starts now, is that Poku's potentially we're not going to get money for him. Ricky, we've not got money for him. Hector, we've not got money for him. So now we're looking to sell players, aren't we? So that's the way that it is. It's unfortunate. I don't really regret anything that I say. I would probably say it again if I had it sprung on me mid-recording. But that is what it is, I guess.
Yeah, and I do get why people are angry about the situation. What I would say is that this is a fantastic move for Ricky. I think, one of the things that we didn't really know when we were recording, or when you guys were recording last week, is what the move would look like. I've had a chance to speak to someone from St. Pauli who have told me about their style of football. Apparently it's counter-attacking, it's very fast-paced football. That is Ricky's jam. You can understand completely why they've gone and wanted the fastest striker in world football to finish that system. It's a fantastic move for Ricky. And also, I think what we have to say is it is a fantastic move for the football club in some ways. If Ricky performs abroad, he's going to get a lot of coverage, especially on, social media, Twitter, TikTok. They love when young English players go abroad and perform, and they love posting those clips. And if he's an academy graduate who's doing really well in a top 5 league, he is going to get the club some attention and get the academy some really positive attention. And the next generation of strikers coming through maybe will think, actually, yeah, I will sign with Posh at 13, 14 years old, because I do want to be the next Ricky-Jade Jones, and I'm fast and I want to play in the Bundesliga and I want to be that sort of cool English striker that's playing abroad. So yeah, actually I will sign with Posh Academy. So I think there are lots of positives to the move. And I think if you're going to be angry at anyone, you should be angry at the club for allowing the contract situation to get to this point. I think if Ricky would have been stupid to turn down the move to St. Pauli to go to a championship club. I think that would have been a very narrow-minded and very sort of like safe move. I think taken a nice risk by going abroad. And I think it will probably pay off. So I don't think we can be angry at Ricky. I wish him really well. He's been a good servant to the football club, but it's just frustrating on the contract situation more than anything.
I'm completely in agreement, Chaz. I think as a 22, 23-year-old lad, that it's not just a great footballing opportunity. The chance to move abroad and live abroad and go and experience life in another country. What a life opportunity for Ricky as well. And then to play top division football. The move's amazing for him. And it's not on Ricky to... I get that he's been with the academy. It's not on Ricky to think, oh, Peterborough need the £1 million. We shouldn't be in a financial situation where we're relying on Ricky-Jade Jones to do the best thing for Peterborough United. It's not on him. It's not his responsibility. In my opinion, he's paid us back in service through the amount of games that he played for the first team. And look, if Ricky lost all his pace, we wouldn't give him a contract out of loyalty just because he came through the academy. So it works both ways, I think. And yeah, I don't think there's any reason really that I can see to criticise Ricky for making his move. Another player we might be talking about leaving the club relatively soon is Malik Mothersille, though. There's rumours this week that Charlton are very strongly interested, and most recently that QPR thinking about putting in a £1 million bid for Mothersille. Up the Poshcast player of the season, Malik Mothersille. I will throw to Lodz and see, would you accept that offer given the contract situation, or would you want to keep him around?
No, I wouldn't accept £1 million. I think we can probably push him to 1.5 at least. I imagine this deal will probably have a lot of add-ons as well. I think we're all of the belief that Malik has a lot of potential and could probably go a lot further than being a bog standard championship player. It's a bit of a strange one. I mean, we're all fans of Malik on this podcast, I think. Even Charlie deep down, I think, is a fan of Malik. But I don't feel sad that he's going. I feel kind of relieved in a way. I feel happy for him that he's going to, well, presumably leave and play in the championship, which is obviously a higher level than he has been playing. I like to think that he's going to get the backing from the fans of whichever club he goes to next. I think he's divided opinions from Posh fans, probably unfairly due to his personality. And I think his personality is the big reason why I like him so much. We live in a world where most footballers are robots now. They get media trained. They all act and behave the same. Malik's one of the rare players we've had of recent times that isn't like that. And I've really enjoyed watching that and the way he plays. So it will be sad to see him go from that point of view, but I am relieved that he's going. He's going to get his opportunity. And most importantly, as we've just said about the Ricky contract situation, I think it's only a positive thing that we're selling our players if they're not going to stay with us now. Yeah, okay, we could go down the compensation route, but what if he goes abroad this time next year and we're having the same conversation that we are now with Ricky? It's very possible, and in my opinion, not worth the risk. I've been calling for ages for us to transfer list players in our last year contract. I said it on the retain list episode. I think the best thing for us to do is cash in on him, which it looks like we're about to do.
I think I agree. And I think I said last week, and I think I still stand by it, that we needed to sell Mills, Malik or Archie for money to sort of save our transfer window. Malik was probably the last one that I wanted to go. It was one of those that Malik, to me, is probably our best player. And that can be debated as much as one. I think Malik's our best player. And I think wherever he would have played this season, he would have made our team far better. Selling him, I agree with Lodz, 1 million is too low. I think 1.5, maybe even the upper echelons of 1 million would be nice. But we'll have to wait and see on the fee. I wouldn't be accepting 1 million though, and I wouldn't rule a loan back out the question. We've got a history of doing that. I don't think Malik's quite ready for the championship yet, so he could be loaned out to a top League One club. I wouldn't expect him to walk straight into the Charlton team, and Malik's not the type of guy to just sit on the bench. So that could definitely be a negotiation that we could have him back for this season for a lesser transfer fee. One that I probably would end up taking because it fixes all our problems, really, doesn't it? We get a big lump sum of money. We get Malik back for another season, and that could be a good deal. Again, that's pure speculation, but I think we do have a history of loan backs. But I think the money will save our window. And I think Malik was, again, the last person that I wanted to go. But in terms of contract negotiations and player signings, we probably needed this boost of money. And it would take the wage off our books. We could pay somebody else or give a price boost. And maybe, we'll speak about Harley Mills later with the cryptic Instagram post that he posted. But Archie Collins as well, I said at the start, it should be our first priority to tie him down for another handful of years. And I think with Malik going, that might help us maybe build him a nicer package if money's the problem. And obviously, hopefully, the players that are going out the door will free up that wage budget to accommodate that.
Max, I think you're living in cloud cuckoo land if you think we're getting Mothersille back on loan. I think you might be able to get Mason Clark back from Coventry, who are pushing for promotion, but there is not a chance Charlton, who have just gone up, are going to sign someone for £1 million and then say, do you want him back for the season as well? Just not going to happen. There's just no chance of it. So I think if we're going to get rid of Mothersille, he will not be coming back on loan. In terms of the transfer fee, look, I'm not opposed if he won't sign, which I am concerned about because it's yet another good player that won't sign a contract at Peterborough United. I do think we have to sell because we can't be left in a situation where the Ricky situation and the Poku situation, these players are getting offered moves abroad now, and it's a good move. It's an appealing move, no matter what Dara says about Poku potentially disappearing when he goes abroad or whatever. I totally disagree. I think it's a great opportunity to go, and players are going to take that opportunity. So we can't leave ourselves in that situation again. My fear is I think we have 2 top League One players in the squad, Mothersille and Collins, and we're about to lose one of them. So if Mothersille goes, what are we going to do? It's yet another good player leaving Peterborough United, and we are already in a situation where the squad looks pretty poor. So yeah, the money would be great, but it also, I think, I don't know how much of it will, if we get 1.5 million, let's say, for Mothersille, reinvest it in 5 players across the squad, you might say that's a good trade. But more likely is we'll get 1.5 million from Mothersille and use it to pay off the debts that we're in, and the squad won't be touched because we'll still be picking up free transfers or cheap players. And that is a concern because we can't lose too much more quality before I think we're staring down the barrel of a 22nd, 23rd, 24th place finish. So, yeah, I do think that we have to take it if he's not going to sign a new deal, but it's just another big warning sign if he does leave the football club, I think.
For me, I think it's more about learning from our mistakes, and DMAC and Barry Fry learning from ultimately what was a mistake last year. Now, to sort of go back to Ricky, I did have a little bit of a back and forth with his agent. He sort of mentioned that I said that they lied, and realistically, if Poku and Ricky and Hector all said that they were going to go to whichever clubs, we would have sold them last year. I think that that's a relatively confident thing to say, and then we would have had a better idea of where we were going into the season and potentially be able to recruit some other players. My issue comes this year is that, like John said, is that we have 2 standout League One players. The rest are probably top-end League Two off of last season's offering. And then if we lose those 2, it's going to be difficult. Now, the flip side is that there has to be some learning from last season with the likes of Manny, with the likes of Warren, with the likes of Con Clark, Otto, Hayes, Gustav Lindgren, all of those sorts of players. There has to be some learning. They have to be better. Like, realistically, can they be any worse than they were last season, other than probably a handful of games? Like, if we look back to Wembley, they've shown that they can do it. Birmingham were poor that day, yes, but they've shown that they can do it against the best of the best. This is a record-breaking Birmingham team that we played at Wembley. So they've shown that they have the ability to do it. It just all comes down to consistency, right? And I think back towards the back end of the season, Otto, hat-trick against Crawley, and then wins that penalty. Players were then starting to sort of pick their form up as well. Not all of them, but they looked slightly better once we were safe. At the same time, then we went to like Mansfield and we went to Rotherham and we were just crap, weren't we? So it's a really difficult one to know what the right thing to do with Mothersille is. For me, I think it's take the money now and just have to suffer this season, because if we don't do it now, we're just going to be suffering this time next year, like you guys say, with exactly the same issue that we had with Ricky and Poku.
Okay, well, in terms of players that are staying at the club, we've had a little bit of news on that front, and I think it's good news, you know. Andre Changunda, I think that's the pronunciation, and Luka Mendonca have both signed new deals. They're the first Peterborough United players that have signed new deals in a while, I think. I'm intrigued to... I'm assuming you're thinking it's good news, Charlie.
I mean, yeah, it definitely is, especially considering the reports that came out earlier in the summer that maybe Changunda was going to go abroad to quite a high-profile club, I think it was. It is good news when we're tying down our youngsters. You know, it's a painful thing when you get a player all the way through the academy and then they leave before you really feel the benefit. That feels, really bad as a fan, and I assume the club hate it when that happens. So to tie them down to new contracts, I just hope we do it right this season in terms of introducing them. I think we sort of had to rapid develop Harley Mills and James Dornelli, and it might have been to the detriment of their confidence and maybe to the detriment of their improvement last season a little bit as well. I hope with Changunda and Mendonca we can introduce them on our terms. We're not forced to put them in because of injuries and stuff. We're not forced to make them play in games that they probably shouldn't play in. I hope that we can... I mean, we don't know how long we've got these players for, so we might have to force them in because we only have them for a year. You know, the media team didn't announce how long we've got, but I just hope we can do it incrementally. We can get them involved slowly, but it's always good news when an academy graduate signs on. It means they're happy at the club. Means that they feel that the club is going in the right places and it's an interesting proposition. And I think Changunda especially is one that I think we should be excited about, because the fact there was interest from elsewhere shows that usually shows that they're a decent player and actually that they've got a little bit about them. And I think Changunda could potentially be the next one off the production line.
Yeah, you're right, Charlie. I think that is the important question that I'm just looking on the Posh website again, just to make sure that I didn't miss it, is that signing a professional contract is great, but what does that actually mean? Does that mean that we've given them a year to sort of take another look at them and then we're going to be scrambling this time next year trying to hide them? Like, obviously, we know that they've been hiding Bolu, haven't we, when he's been 15 and banging the goals in for the under-21s. Are we going to end up hiding these two players because we can't tie them down to a long-term contract, or have they signed 3 or 4 year deals? Like, it would be interesting to know whether that communication can come from the club or not is a different question. But at the moment, it's kind of like professional deal, great, but it doesn't mean anything, does it, if you don't know how long they've signed for? Because we could come around to next summer, and then if they've had good seasons in the first team, let's say, or not in the Virtue Trophy, for example, then they're going to be going, aren't they? A bigger team's going to come in for them. We've already seen the vultures around for Changunda, like Charlie said, so we'll probably be in a similar scenario if they're not 2-3 year contracts for both of those.
Okay, in terms of additions then, well, it's been a quiet week for rumours, hasn't it? It doesn't feel like there's loads of players linked with Posh at the minute, but one player who has been linked is Ben Woods, the Accrington Stanley midfielder. Now, Dara's denied it, but how much credence do you put in a Dara denial? Because we have seen plenty of no's from McAntony before, and they've then walked through the London Road gates just a few days later. So you never really know with a no from Dara. Max, you love talking about other size players. You're our Up The Posh scout. So talk to us about Ben Woods. What do you know about him? Would he be a good signing?
I think Ben Woods would be a great signing. What would worry me is our lack of a 6. To me, he seems more of an Archie Collins replacement. He's got 9 goals and 6 assists in 36 league appearances, and he's a progressive 8. I think one that likes to get up the pitch and be on the end of runs in the box. Seems to have an eye for it. Those stats are I think quite good for somebody who doesn't play a 10 or a forward line and plays in central midfield, from my understanding. So that would be good for us, I think, to give us goals from that position. Archie Collins rarely sort of pops up with one, doesn't he? But to sort of have somebody that has that eye for it, maybe more of a natural born finisher than Archie Collins would be good. My only worry then would be we'd be playing two very similar profiles as a pivot next season if Collins were to stay. Or does this mean that Collins is going out the door and this would be his replacement and we're yet to find a Kyprianou replacement? Because what worked so well, wasn't it, was how interchangeable Collins and Kyprianou were. But for most of it, when Kyprianou was fit, he'd be the one slotting into that almost a 3-back as we were going up the pitch and dictating the play, whereas Collins would be picking the ball up and trying to drive it forward and playing those crossfield balls that we all know that he can play. If we have two very similar profiles of players in that midfield, how is that going to work? Because in Ashley's words, that sounds like total vibes to me. And that is something that I could probably get behind because it will be attacking, won't it? It will be entertaining. But this season has been riddled with defensive frailty. And we have been really poor in that regard. We conceded far too many. We didn't keep a league clean sheet till like February, I think. It was insanity last season in terms of our defence. Is having a midfield pivot of two relatively attacking-minded central midfielders clever? I don't know. But there's still a long time this transfer in there, isn't there? And really, I would have liked our midfield to have been sorted before pre-season starts. So if this is what we're going to go with, and I just talked about that interchangeable sort of nature of Collins and Kyprianou, where Collins did do a role of sitting in that back three, and it wasn't terrible. Obviously not to the level of Kyprianou, but he did a good job and probably commanded them a little bit. I think if that's the pivot we're going to play in, Collins is going to move to a more defensive role to give Ben Woods that license. I definitely can see it working. It's just, for me, I would have loved a sort of natural born 6 who loves to get stuck in. But we'll have to wait and see on the transfer front what's going to come in the future weeks. I think Ben Woods is a fantastic signing, though, is what I will say. Is I have talked about my concerns a lot there, but an 8 with an eye for goal is something that every team would love. I can't sit here and say that I've watched him all season. I can't sit here and say that I've watched him loads, but from what I have seen and for what Accrington Stanley are saying, he's a fantastic player. He won their player of the season. So that to me says a lot about the character of player at only 22 years old.
I don't know if I'm alone with this opinion, but I don't see Archie Collins as a sort of attacking midfielder at all. I think his relationship with Kyprianou, I think Kyprianou was the one that was getting forward and chipping in with the goals more than what Archie was. I think, if anything, Archie Collins' weakest part of his game is probably his goal scoring. So I was confused when Dara said at the end of last season about signing a defensive midfielder to play alongside Archie Collins. I thought we're probably shooting ourselves in the foot. I think Archie Collins' defensive performances last season was actually probably one of the shining lights in our overall defensive performances, if that makes any sense. I would like to see Archie continue that next season, presuming that the plan is that we keep him into next season. So a player like Ben Woods' profile, if what you're saying is true, Max, I think would actually play quite well with Archie. I'd much rather that than sign the defensive midfielder that Dara was alluding to play alongside him, and then rely on Archie to produce in the final third, which, yeah, okay, we've seen him play some decent progressive passes in the final third, but I think goal scoring, he lacks it too much for it to be a plan of ours going into next season.
I think my issue with this lad from Accrington is that, like Matt says, nobody really knows, do they? They're only looking at paperwork. Nobody's watched him. And that's sort of where we're at the moment. Like, we're so desperate for something to happen, to be exciting. Like I said this week when I tweeted, is that I was excited to see the players back. It felt like fresh content, didn't it? And ultimately, I think that we could have been linked with any player. And that probably would have excited people because it's just been such a dull week, ultimately. Like, the most exciting thing for me was watching Lewis Keeble's interview, basically him giggling to himself about roasting the players in the first 2 days of testing. I must admit, I saw Dara tweet that he was excited about what was to come, but also that we're waiting for July the 1st. Now, July the 1st is 4 days before we play our first pre-season. Now, I understand that there's the wage caps and whatnot, but I'm sure that we said that we were going to get players in before then. I know that we've got 2, but I'm sure we were meant to be 4 or 5 down the line. These players are then going to be, let's say, 2-3 weeks behind their teammates and then struggling already. And then it's like we're playing catch up already with everybody else. I don't understand the wage cap thing. I'm sure that it would be great to have Harry on to explain it. But why can every other team make signings? Like, surely every team works to their wage cap, right? There's been signings all around the Football League, and we're just feels like we're being left behind. Something like Stevenage, for example. How have they been able to make like 4 or 5, 6, 7 signings that so far this summer? New contracts for players, all of that sort of stuff. And we're just being left behind to sort of rot and pick up the fodder that nobody else wants. I want to think that the players that we've got in the building, like I said earlier, are going to improve and are going to be better, but they need some help. And at the moment, they've not got it. So I'd like to see some activity in the next 7 days by the time we roll around to when we record next. But at the moment, it's looking like we need a fresh lease of life, let's say.
I must say, Ash, your pessimism there is reflected in my own opinion. I saw Dara saying Posh fans don't need to flap, and I might not be flapping, but I'm getting somewhere close to it. I mean, St George's Park is very soon, and we still have no goalkeeper in the building that is going to start for us. We still don't have 2 centre-backs, which we need. We still don't have the central midfield replacement for our Hector Cipriano. So basically the entire core of the squad is still not in place for next season. And we were promised 4 or 5 first-team starters, and all we've done is bring in 2 wingers who theoretically could be bench warmers. I think next season they could be impact substitutes. I'm not convinced either of them starts. And when I look at the wingers that we've signed, they've got 1 assist between them in the entirety of last campaign. Now, Kyril Lisby as a player, I think as a player profile, yeah, I don't mind it, but we've seen Chris Clark really struggle with the step up, and his stats were better than Lisby's in the season before he joined us. The one that really concerns me, though, is Declan Frith, if I'm being perfectly honest. He hasn't got a goal or assist since November the 18th last year. And he wasn't a starter in the Swiss Championship. He played 14 games and 16 substitute appearances. Like, he's 23. What are we doing here? He's replacing Kwame Poku, may I remind everybody, who was probably the best player in the league. Now, if you want to be generous and say the Swiss Championship is League One standard, well, then 6 goals, no assists, and 14 starts in League One, you wouldn't be clamoring to sign that winger. The chances are the Swiss Championship's probably not even League One standard. So, I mean, look, he might be a great player. I'm not writing it off, but it really does feel like the 2 players we've brought in so far are massive gambles. And then we haven't done anything else with the rest of the squad. We haven't addressed any of the areas of major concern, because I would say that I'm not sure that signing wingers would have been my first priority. I think we did need some additions in those areas. But if you ask Posh fans what they need the most, I think pretty much all of us would have said goalkeeper, centre-back, maybe a centre-mid, certainly ahead of wingers. So, yeah, I think that basically where I'm at the minute is I'm seeing a lot of red flags for the season. And while there is time to address these, and there is time that we can solve these problems, if we don't do it soon, we're immediately going to be on the back foot. And I am disappointed with the lack of activity, maybe the lack of urgency. I don't really know what's going on, because we need players in through the door desperately. And the longer we wait, the more worried I'm going to be.
Yeah, I'm unfortunately with you, John. I mean, I don't really care when we get the players in. Like, if they come in the day before the season, as long as they're ready to play on the opening day, I don't really care that much. I mean, obviously, the longer preseason they have with us, the better. But, you know, I think what I am really worried about is that when you look at the teams, that especially the teams that have come up from League Two, I mean, Bradford, the level of signings they've made is absolutely worlds above us. You know, they've signed Stephen Humphreys, they've brought in Toure from Stockport, they've signed some very, very good players. They brought in Kilmarnock's player of the season, like, to play centre half. those are good signings. The same with Port Vale. They've made a couple of really good signings. You know, Stevenage, who are probably one of the sides that would be tipped to be down there next season. They've been absolutely killing it in the transfer market so far. Doncaster have made signings. It is really concerning. It feels like we are getting left behind. And I think the issue is as well, is that, I mean, Cobblers are another one that have made loads of signings. Apparently they're going to sign Tyrese Forner now. Apparently that's a rumour. I feel like we are missing out on some really big opportunities here. I don't know what Darragh thinks is going to happen, whether he thinks, you know, the players that we want to sign are just going to stay unsigned for the rest of the season. But if we leave it to the 1st of July, our targets list may go from, you know, 5 players to 1 available player, because all of them have transferred. You know, we go for players that are usually quite high in demand. It's very rare that a player we're trying to sign has got no other interest and has no other clubs trying to sign them. At what point do we need to put our foot on the gas here and actually start signing players? I mean, a prime example of that is Sam Hughes. You know, since the end of the season, supposedly he's had a contract on the table from us. We still haven't heard anything about whether he's going to sign it. Feels every day that goes by less likely that he is going to sign it, because, you know, why would he wait this long? Supposedly we've got something agreed with Stockport, but, you know, you never know. Stockport seem to be starting to replace him, but it feels like we can't compete for this level of player anymore. You know, Sam Hughes has offers from, even if Burton wants Sam Hughes back, he's probably more likely to go there now. We are in serious trouble. I'm usually quite positive, but I am getting quite worried now. And of course, I do have faith in the recruitment process and all of that. And I think our policy of recruiting young is still a good one to go by. And I'm not saying, you know, we should throw the baby out with the bathwater and sign 5 players in the next 5 days, but I'm getting worried. I think we need to put our foot on the gas and we need to start doing something, and quick.
Yeah, there is one big issue with what you've just said there, Charlie, about signing 5 players in 5 days, and that's that we can't afford it, ultimately. We're skint. I know that you said that also you weren't too bothered about when we get these players in. I think that's probably a little bit of a silly thing to say, because Peterborough United don't have the best track record of taking pre-season seriously. We've got one relatively difficult opponent in Leicester, and then the rest are just the local teams that we're going to play, which means that August and September are going to be pre-season. Now, you may think, well, it doesn't matter when we sign them, but ultimately we are not going to hit the ground running like we need to, and then we're going to find ourselves trailing behind. That's the only way that I can see it, is that we got lucky last season. I think that we were okay in August. We got 2 wins, didn't we? Then we were sort of same level. We carried that through to end of November. Obviously, I think we only played 2 league games in November, but we can't afford to not win in August, let's say, and then be constantly chasing our tails from the start of the season, because I'm not sure that unless we do get somebody like Sam Hughes in, that these players have got the battle and got the fight in them. So yeah, it certainly needs to happen quickly for me, I think. And I like I said, I don't want to be negative. I don't want to sit here and say, look, we're doomed from the day that we kick a ball in the league, but there's got to be something that changes in the next 2 weeks, let's say. But am I optimistic of that? Not in the slightest.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it? Because I always try to remain positive, but it feels very bleak at the minute, doesn't it? In terms of just everything surrounding transfers. John said earlier, if you asked any Peterborough fan, the wingers would be the last position they sign. I think I said that was the position I wanted to sign in most. So that sort of shows on the timeline how deluded I probably am. But we're completely right. For me, I think by the start of pre-season, Charlie, you said that you don't mind if the players come in the first day, the last day before the fixture, as long as they're ready to play on the first day. That would be, I would implode. The players need a pre-season because they need to fit the system that we play. And we will have no clue if they can or not, if they're not in for the pre-season. That's the biggest worry of mine, is that I understand that there's money issues. I understand that there's wage issues. But I think pre-season is so important to the way that we play. And last season, they sort of trickled in throughout pre-season, didn't they? And a lot of the time, we were given the excuse of that these players need to gel. it was tough, I think, because I think we really were giving them a harder job than met the eye. At the very most, I think we need a goalkeeper in immediately. Like our next signing would be lovely if it was a goalkeeper. Will Blackmore being our only goalkeeper is bad, and I think Will Blackmore isn't a goalkeeper that can start at this level. So I think we definitely need a goalkeeper through the door before pre-season, and a centre half or a central midfielder before pre-season. So really, if we got 2 in, which I don't think is completely out of the ordinary, considering we probably are going to loan a goalkeeper, so we're not going to be spending a huge, like a full sum on wage. I think that is integral to how sort of pre-season and going into those first couple of fixtures go, because it gives the players a boost, doesn't it? Like it allows them to play together, and those two positions are so integral because we've seen Wallen and Manny play at the start of the season, and we saw the difference that Hughes made when playing with Wallen. So maybe that centre-back partnership doesn't work as well as we'd like it to. So a centre-back in the door, maybe a more experienced one. I'm not saying like 29, 30, but somebody that's got league experience would be a really good signing. And then I think we're rumoured to be signing, or there's murmurs of Simpkin from Walsall. I don't know if there's been any more sort of push on that. He's a great goalkeeper, and he's a bit of a shithouse, which I've been told is fantastic if they're on our team. So it's going to be interesting. But we have to make some sort of movement before pre-season to get 2 positions in that are so key, because I think we'd all agree here that our depth is poor, but in those 2 positions, it's our poorest now, and that is something that I think we need to do, and fast.
Max, you've got a real problem if you want 2 new players in before pre-season, because pre-season started 2 days ago. So we're a little bit behind on that one, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I guess what I'd say is what I meant by I'd happy if all the players join the game the day before the first game of the season is, I don't want us to rush. I want us to get the right players. I think our recruitment this summer is so important that we have to wait. And if we think there's a chance that we get sort of the player that will solve all of our issues in a position, then go for it. I mean, I don't think players actually need that long to fit into our system. If you look at who were probably our 3 best signings this season, well, maybe 2 of the 3, Hughes, Carl Johnston and Teo were done. They all came in January and adapted to the system very quickly and probably saved us from relegation. So, I don't think having and all the players will have a pre-season, whether they, unless they're free agents, if they're at a club, they're still going to be doing all the pre-season stuff. So I wouldn't be massively concerned. I also understand if we have to shift players like Bradley Honvian and Nicholas Bilikapic before we can get players in, just for sort of to play the numbers game and for wage cap and stuff. I completely get that, but I'm not in a rush. But I am getting concerned. But that's purely just because of looking at the extent to which teams around us are signing players, and also the way that teams around us are taking players that I would quite like us to have signed. And I worry that actually we maybe are just being overly patient and that we're going to run out of options. But I wouldn't be massively panicky if the players aren't in the door for the opening game against Stamford. I think the 5th of July is it. If they're not in the door for that and we have to play Ollie Rose and George Nevitt, then so be it.
Yeah, I think I'm with you on that, Charlie, about not rushing. I know that a goalkeeper probably is very high up on our priority list to sign this summer, but whilst Belo's still at the club and we're paying his wages, I can't see us getting one in. And I don't think we're going to shift Belo anytime soon. He might go out on loan to a League 2 club or whatever, but we're going to go through pre-season with 2 goalkeepers regardless, aren't we? So I think we probably will take our time with a lot of the signings, make sure that they're the right fit, and then get them in. I think the most important signing, though, will be Malik's replacement, because I've said it before, Peterborough United are known for having that star number 9 that gets 30 goals a season, and they're the money makers. We sell them for millions of pounds after they've won the Golden Boot. Malik leaving will give us the opportunity to get that striker in, and we've had some duds recently. this is our opportunity now. And I actually wouldn't mind if we spent massive on this striker and sacrifice filling other positions on the pitch, because financially, I think we'd be better off from getting the right striker in, selling them for lots of money. I think I'm actually going to say it's probably one of the most important signings of Darragh McAntony's era at Posh, because this will be make or break for Peterborough United.
Well, to end the pessimism, the one good thing is that Harley Mills has put up an Instagram post, which will be displayed on the screen now. Basically, he said, "Not long now," with a picture of him in a Posh shirt and a eye emoji. I think it's been widely taken to mean that he's going to sign a new contract, and hopefully that he's not going to leave the club in the near future. I think it'd be great if we can keep Harley Mills. I think that's probably a widespread opinion. Max, what do you think?
Well, I think his stocks can only rise, can't it? I think that it was high after that free kick in the trophy. And if you look at that in sort of more detail, people wanted to come in and sign him. There was murmurs about Fulham wanting to sign him for, I think it was $1 million, $1.5 million. I think if we can tie him down for 2-3 years, or however long he's going to sign for, hopefully it's not just a year extension. I'd like it to be a little bit longer than that. Darragh's come out and changed the sort of structuring. I don't know what that is for players who sign new contracts. Are they going to sign 3+1s? Because we haven't had it in so long, as John has said. You know, are they going to sign 3+1s? Are they going to sign a year extension? What could that look like? What could the contract extensions look like? But I'm hoping that the cryptic message doesn't mean that he'll be playing football. It's wait for football again, and hopefully means that he'll be signing a new deal, because I think he's probably the player, as I've said, he's probably got the highest ceiling. He was probably the one that I would have sold, purely because I think it would take him longer than Malik and Collins. You know, we want instant impact now. I think Malik and Collins are going to continue having that impact on the squad, whereas Mills might take a little bit more time to get up to being an integral top League One sort of player. But in terms of youth and stocks and potential money, they can only grow, they can only rise, and this is excellent news, because really I think we're going to sell him for more money when his contract is towards the end, because he's got a great head on his shoulders and he plays football really, really well, and that is something that is really key.
I would not get too ahead of ourselves here in terms of a new contract for Harley Mills. I think that he's going to sign a contract that basically says that he gets a nice little pay rise. He's the starting left back, and then it's an extra year, so that this time next year we can sell him and we make money rather than him leaving on a free. I don't think it's going to be anything more than that. The talk of 3-4 years, not a chance. He already knows that people are after him, so why would he tie himself into Peterborough United for a potential another 4 years? I think that the only way that Harley Mills stays past the end of the season coming is that if we get promoted to the Championship, and I think that there's more chance of me signing a professional contract for Peterborough United than us getting promoted to the Championship.
By the time the next podcast comes out, we will know who Peterborough United are playing every week for next season. The EFL fixture list comes out at 12 p.m. on June the 26th. So not long to wait now. Who are we looking forward to playing the most? Ashley, you go first.
I am really looking forward to them announcing that we will play every team in the league twice, one home fixture and one away fixture. Just give me an away day on Boxing Day. That's all I'm after. I don't care about the rest.
I would love to start the season with an away day. And you know where I want to go? I want to go down to like Devon, either Exeter or Plymouth. Get me down there on a hot sunny day by the seaside. Go down for a couple of days, you know, maybe have a little bit of a staycation, as they call it. Yeah, get me down to Plymouth. I went there a couple of seasons ago when we had the double header, and it was a fantastic couple of days. It's a really nice place. Yeah, I want them on the opening day of the season.
There's one fixture I'm looking forward to. That's Wimbledon away. It's the only ground I've not been to out of the 24. And there's one Saturday I'm busy for so far this season, which is my great nan Elsie is turning 100. So I don't want to not attend that. What I'm hoping for is that Wimbledon away isn't on that Saturday, because I will be upset. But apart from that, I have no preference. It would be nice if we got some short distance Tuesday night games, away games, rather than the long distance ones we've been getting of recent years. And then also, like Charlie said, the nice destinations, it'd be good to have them in the summer rather than the winter.
Yeah, well, I think I agree with Charlie. I'd like Plymouth on the first day of the season. But to be a bit different, because I think we're all doing, we've all said different things, So I wouldn't mind Cardiff away either. I think get one of the longer ones out the way early, and also because I'm at uni in Derby, I'd like all the northern ones when I'm at uni to save me some money. That would be fantastic.
Yeah, I'm stuffed because the league is all about 4 hours from my house. Moving away from Peterborough and moving down south, it's not looking like a good League One for me. So Reading away, can I request that? It's 20 minutes down the road. That would be quite nice. Don't need to do too much there. Just get on the train. Me and Ash can have a nice little round of golf in the sun beforehand, like this, and then we can watch us lose at the Medeski again. So that would be fun. Nice way to start the season. So yeah, that's my game that I'm looking forward to. That in Cambridge. Oh, hold on. We can't play them. Whee! Anyway, on that note, we just want to say thank you very much, basically, because this kind of rounds off the summer series. So thanks for sticking with us over the summer. I hope you enjoyed a lot of the content. We also want to say thank you to RafD3993, I think is the username. He gave us our first super donation. Just think, Raf, if you had waited an extra week, you could have had a pin badge for that money and been the envy of everyone. But we really do appreciate that. Obviously, we're not charging for our content. We're not Posh Plus here. But if you don't want to give us any money, we would love it if you could just like or the videos or subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's one way you can really support the pod. The more subscribers we can get, the better for the pod. So we would really appreciate that. Is there any other business today before we wrap, lads? Anyone want to say anything else?
I'll maybe say, look, the aim is to get to 1,000 subscribers before the season starts. If we can get there, that would be ideal. If not, then we will continue going. We've got lots of things lined up, haven't we, Lodz, that we're going to do over the course of the season. And things are going to get more exciting. All we need is some good football to watch. And I think that there may be a slight stumbling block.
Yeah, cheers again for listening. By the next episode, you will see we will be in season 2 with a new shiny badge. For those of you who haven't seen it, it's on Twitter. And we will have some new graphics coming for the new season as well. So lots of exciting stuff going on with Up The Poshcast. We will see you back for season 2. Up The Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Up the Poshcast.
Thank you all for listening. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter at Up The Poshcast. Let us know your feedback. Give us any ideas for topics you would like us to discuss or any questions you'd like us to answer. Up The Poshcast.
Sorry, just to finish, Lodz, that it looks like a lovely pin badge you're wearing. Where did you get that from?
www.uptheposhcast.com.
Nice. Really, really smooth that. Well done, lads.